What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts from the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, the Tad the Side. And Tad, as of recording, this is the last Thursday where we will not have football up until February.
That also makes it a little bit depressing, though, because a lot of those Thursday games are not going to be good.
No, but we talked about this when we did our schedule
I know
episode a while
better,
back.
But
the Thursday
it's marginally
schedule,
better. It's marginally better.
I don't know. I feel like it's substantially better compared to, I remember the Monday Night Football slate not being all that great, and the Sunday Night Football was hit or miss as well. But the Thursday slate got a lot better compared to years past, I feel. So, obviously, we'll see how things transpire. Obviously, injuries change a whole lot of things, and, trades could potentially change a whole lot of things. But, yeah, as of right now, I am not as worried about the Thursday night slate. But yeah, maybe some of those other primetime slates can be a little bit more worrisome in my eyes.
See, here's the problem with all these primetime slates is they look good now. But then come October, November, all of a sudden they suck. And that's the problem with Sunday Night Football of the Cowboys versus, Eagles in week 9 looks great until Dak Prescott's gone. And who is even their backup now?
Trey Lance, man.
Is it? Oh, dear God. It is not. Ben DiNucci, get back in there.
It is Trey Lance.
Get back in there.
He is their backup right now, Trey Lance.
But, God, that's depressing.
Yeah, so we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, officially, we are that much closer to the NFL regular season. We're that much closer to the NCAA football season as well, because that starts earlier than the NFL season. So, if you're ready for some, football action, that is coming your way. And Tad, our sponsors definitely want to get you into the action with that, because Underdog Fantasy is your number one source when it comes to your betting needs. You have to make anywhere between 2 and 8 different prop bet picks, and the more picks you make, the more potential money you can win. You can bet on the NFL, you can bet on the NCAA, you can bet on the MLB season. We're coming down to the postseason stretch here. We're in the second half here, so that should be some fun stuff to bet. I'm pretty sure we'll get some Olympic-related bets as well, because the opening ceremony is tomorrow, so that should be fun if you're a fan of the Summer Olympics. So that should be a lot of fun as well. The WNBA will be going into their postseason stretch as well, so you can bet on that action. Tad, I know you made some money on the WNBA action as well. So, there's a lot of things you can be betting on. Whatever you're comfortable with already, like I said, make anywhere between 2 and 8 different prop bet picks. You can win yourself some good money as we head into the football season here. And Underdog Fantasy wants to get you into the action, like I said, because they share a promo code with us, and that promo code is DESAI, DESAI. And with that promo code, you can double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500. So, hypothetically, if you were to put in that max amount, $500, using our promo code on your first deposit only, it will not work on multiple deposits, unfortunately. It's the first one only. If you use that promo code, you can bet with hypothetically up to $1,000 on their betting platforms. The website's really easy to use. The apps, both on Apple and Android devices, is very easy to use as well. So, get into the action. It's a ton of fun. Underdog Fantasy. Use our promo code DESAI, DESAI. Double up on your initial deposit of $10 or more, up to $500, courtesy of our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. And yeah, Ted, definitely when NFL season gets around, it's going to be a lot more,
a lot of bets.
A lot of
YouTube shorts.
And YouTube Shorts, I was just about to say that. I was like, we'll be giving our advice as far as our underdog picks, just like last year. So, it's going to be a ton of fun. Get ready to start practicing your quickening as far as your delivery.
It's going to be so hard.
Gotta get that under a minute again. We're out of practice for sure. It's been, 6 months or longer than that since we've done
much longer. Almost a year at this point.
Yeah, so it's going to be a long time, and it's been a long time, and so it's going to be here sooner than you think that we're going to have to get back under all of that. And with all of that, Tad, with the NFL season coming around the corner, we are pushing along with our positional rankings when it comes to fantasy football. So today we get to the wide receivers. We got 24 wide receiver rankings that we posted on our social media handles. We're not going to discuss our rankings on today's episode, but You see the social media ticker coming right down below. You got us on Twitter there and on Instagram. That's where we post all of our graphics. We'll do another plug at the end of the episode as well. But guys, that is where you can find our full rankings 1 through 24 for wide receivers. You can get our 1 through 24 for running backs, as well as our 1 through 12 for quarterbacks as well. All of those have been posted. So please, guys, go check that out. We'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. But Tad, as we were putting these rankings together, obviously, in case you're tuning in for the first time for our rankings episode, me and Tad do our rankings a little bit differently. I do my rankings based on pre-draft rankings. So this is where I feel these guys should be drafted as you go into your draft, obviously, for lack of a better word. And Tad does his rankings based on where he thinks they will finish at the end of the season. So you can actually use both of our rankings in conjunction, because you can sort of see where guys possibly are going to be drafted. But then you can also see these other rankings where it's like, okay, where are these guys going to finish? That's where you could possibly find some hidden values as you approach your draft strategy. So, Tad, looking at my rankings, obviously these are pre-draft rankings. What sort of stuck out to you as far as like, I'm not sure about this one, or I like this one, or just what are your general thoughts?
Well, before I give my general thoughts on your rankings, can we both agree that wide receivers are the hardest to rank?
Are they the hardest? Because I
think
actually
it is.
I didn't struggle as much with wide receiver. I struggled a lot with quarterback. There's a lot of quarterbacks that I wanted to stick at the bottom of my top 12. I remember I texted you that too. I was like, I'm struggling quite a bit.
So let me clarify. Why did you struggle so hard with quarterbacks?
I felt like there was a lot of guys that maybe are going undervalued that could possibly be in the top 12 as far as like possibly pre-draft. So that was sort of my struggle there.
Okay, so there are too many good options.
Yes.
Here's the problem with wide receivers is there are too many unknown options.
That is true. There's a lot more question marks. I'll give you that.
That's why I think that's the harder position, is because with wide receiver, and you see this year by year. I think we did an episode on this last year. I know we did an episode on this last year where we kind of looked at the top 5, top 10 receivers, and only like 3 receivers normally stay in the top 10. Otherwise, it's a complete fluctuation of like guys who are in there. And that's why I'm like, it's a crapshoot. And that's why I'm not going to hit your rankings too hard, because I can see the justification behind all of them.
Okay.
Except, I can't remember if you have him in the top 15, but you definitely have him in the top 20. Nico Collins with the Houston Texans. Dangerous.
Nico Collins, I have him at 16, so he was just outside the top 15.
16. I knew he was somewhere around there. Yeah. That's too dangerous of a bet for me, and I will tell you why.
Okay.
Had the Texans not made a crucial move in the offseason, I would completely agreed. Nico Collins probably would have been one of my favorite football, sleepers of the year, since not a lot of people still know his name. However, Stephon Diggs' presence, I think, will be a major, major detractor to Nico Collins', fantasy production. And if you look, when teams have top two receivers, arguably top 3, if you think Tank Dell is there, I'm still not totally sold on Tank Dell. I think that was a bit of a flash in the pan. But all right, let's say Tank Dell is out of the picture. Top 24 finish, maybe. Top 16 finish, I don't see it. And especially because if you look at what the Texans have in Joe Mixon, it's not like they're just going to ditch this running game and all of a sudden be a very pass-happy kind of spread type offense. I don't see that happening. And I think Stephon Diggs, while definitely not what he was, still is really good. Still arguably a top 5 receiver in the NFL. So I have real concerns about Diggs absolutely vulturing Collins' touches, especially his touchdowns. And I just am not convinced that this Houston Texans offense is going to go, all right, CJ Stroud had a good year. Let's air it out all the time with him. Maybe they will. And maybe that is the right move. God, I hope it's not. But I think that's one of those things that is just such an unnecessary risk at 16 that maybe you could pick up in the mid-20s. So I don't love that pick of Collins right there.
That's fair. I do completely understand that Stephon Diggs entering the picture totally throws a wrench into things as far as like
a lot.
Yeah, as far as just who's going to be the primary option in that offense. Like you'd assume it'd be Stephon Diggs based on all of his previous, destinations where he's been in Buffalo and obviously where he's been in Minnesota. He was the clear-cut number 1 option. And now landing here, the thing that sort of worries me the most with Stephon Diggs, and I do agree he's going to vulture a lot of those targets, a lot of those receptions, but I think the thing that sort of worries me a little bit with Stephon Diggs is that I don't think this is actually a good thing for the Texans, is that Diggs has never been in a situation where he's had this much talent around him in the receiver room. Because you look at Minnesota, he did have Adam Thielen, but outside that, nobody else really. You look at Buffalo, it was like pretty much just him in Buffalo. Eventually, I think there were some guys that emerged. We always thought the hype was there with Gabe Davis and never really realized that. Now we'll see what he does in Jacksonville. But I think him landing here, this could either be really good for him, where he's like, now he's got, the Batman to his Robin, whatever you want to call it, where it's just like he's got a now true option behind him, as well as Tank Dell. So now he's got 3 solid options there. I think that could either be really good for him, or it could be just a detriment to him, where it's like, okay, now there's other really good options in his passing offense. And you also have to remember that Nico Collins was on this roster last year, so he's able to build that chemistry already with CJ Stroud. So that's why I sort of, once again, my rankings are based on where he's going to be drafted, not based on where he's going to finish. Do I think Nico Collins will finish in the top 20? Maybe, maybe not. Really just depends on how, like you said, this offense is going to operate. Are they going to lean a little bit more to balance take? Are they going to go more pass happy because they have all these options? I'm not really sure. But I think because Nico Collins was in the system last year, he's already built that chemistry with Stephon Diggs entering the picture. Like, I'm pretty sure the chemistry will be there, but it may take some time. So that's why I'm siding with Nico Collins as far as the guy that I want to draft first in that Texans receivers room.
I think that at 16, that's more of Joseph Gordon-Levitt Robin, where it's like good, not great.
Was he officially Robin? Like, I mean, I know
his middle name or his real name was Robin, not his middle name. Sorry, because his middle name was John, and he went by or his first name was Robin. That was so dumb by Chris Nolan. But anyway, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt being Robin, fine, good, not great, enough there to be like, fine, I can swallow that. I think that you have him ranked as Joseph Gordon-Levitt Robin. I think he's going to be Chris McDonald. O'Donnell? What is it?
Chris O'Donnell, yeah.
O'Donnell? Okay, There we go. Well, who gives a shit? Because
Chris McDonald is Shooter McGavin from...
Oh, there we go.
Don't get those guys mixed up.
That is the first pew-pew I've ever done on this podcast.
Oh, gosh.
Oh my good God. But point being is, I think it's going to be the Chris O'Donnell, George Clooney / was he in the Val Kilmer movie?
He was. That was the first appearance of Chris
O'Donnell. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So that's the Robin you're going to get. It's the Robin you're going to get versus the Robin you expect. And I totally expect the 90s Robin compared to the 2010s Robin.
Okay, fair. Looking at your rankings now, obviously this will make LAFB Network very happy about this, but I was just a little bit concerned that you have both LA Rams receivers in your top 12, and those receivers would be Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. So, I mean, you really think Cooper Kupp's going to bounce back that well that he's also going to warrant being a wide receiver 1? Okay.
Yes. I don't think Cooper Kupp has Julio Jones syndrome where it's like, oh, these are nagging injuries. I'm really worried. He's just getting unlucky with a lot of these very severe injuries. So I think that the Rams are going to pass it a lot, despite the return of Kyren Williams, who, by the way, we talked about in last week's episode, breaking down our fantasy football running backs, which you can check out on the LAFB Network YouTube channel. So yes, I think we both think Kyren Williams is going to have a very big year, but this has always been a pass first offense. And I think that Nacua is going to be kind of the deep stretch guy, and Cooper Kupp is going to be the red zone guy. And I think that they're going to keep leaning on the pass until Matt Stafford shows that his age eventually can't do it anymore. And until then, tell me if this is a hot take. Matt Stafford might be the most ageless quarterback I've seen since Tom Brady, which I know only makes it about like 3 or 4 years. But point being is like Matt Stafford is like how this dude is not like crashed and burned yet is absolutely insane to me.
He is a bit of an Iron Man for sure. And yeah, we'll see exactly how much longer he can go. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely one of those quarterbacks that could definitely put in that same conversation as far as just like, guy who went there, gave it his all every single game. And yeah, one of those, like you said, ageless quarterbacks for sure. So I can agree with that one.
So my point being is I think Nacua through receptions, yards, and touchdowns will finish as a top 10 wide receiver. I think Kupp is going to get most of his money through touchdowns. If he goes a week without a touchdown, he's probably going to end up, getting you 7 to 11 to 12 points. Something where you're like not upset with him, but at the same time you're like, damn it, dude! Like if you just got that one more catch, I would have won this week. Like I think that's going to be. I almost said Nacua. I think that's going to be Kupp's kind of sweet spot of like very touchdown dependent receiver. But I think that this Rams offense is still efficient enough to get him to the point where he can still pay off that risk.
All right. Interesting. See, I feel like Nacua may cannibalize too much from Cooper Kupp because I feel like they have a very similar skill set. They're both very good route runners. They're both at, catching passes just anywhere on the field, like both on the outside as well as working in the middle too. So it's like, that's why we're like, we may see some lot of hot and cold with both Nacua and Kupp, where it's like one guy's going to be good, then the next week another guy's going to be good. So it's just going to be too much of that. And so that's what worries me a little bit as far as both of them finishing so highly. So, but yeah, believe me, I'm pretty sure all LA Rams fans would love to be proven wrong that just both of those guys will flourish. So
I think Nacua is just so much faster than Kupp at this point. That's why I see him more
because
as
he's got age on his side. That's the biggest thing.
You know what I see it as? Is it's actually a duo you brought up earlier. Is imagine like an Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. Those 2 or 3 years where they were together. Where Thielen is now Kupp. Where it's he may not do as well fantasy wise, but he's still very consistent fantasy wise because he's a better route runner. Where Stephon Diggs is, frankly, the better receiver at this point in his career, and would at times produce these monster numbers. So I agree. I don't think they're going to blow up every week, but I think they're going to blow up enough to land both in the top 15. Now, speaking of receivers in the top 15, and again, we need to clarify for listeners and viewers that you do where they're going to be drafted. So I actually agree with your ranking at number 1. And I think this might be the first time in the series we've released the number 1 pick. Actually, it might have been Mahomes. You have Tyreek Hill at number 1. I completely agree. I think Tyreek Hill is going to be the number 1 receiver taken. He's at back-to-back absolutely crazy years in Miami. I think this is the year he does not finish in the top 3.
You don't think he finishes in the top 3?
Mm-mm. I think he finishes top 5. I think 4 or 5. I almost said 6. 4 or 5, I think is realistic. But like Jalen Waddle, watching him, I'm just getting more and more scared. I'm like, oh no, the young guy's coming. Like this is happening. So where do you think he finishes?
I think Tyreek Hill still easily finishes at the top 5. I think definitely top 3 as well. Yeah, easily. Yeah, I think just his speed is just like, it's unquestioned how fast this guy is. It's such a big weapon in that offense. Like, I mean, it's just built so much on speed. So it's like, I don't disagree with you that Waddle is sort of creeping along there and he eventually could become a successor in that offense. But I think for right now, I still see very much that's like, it's Tyreek Hill and then Jalen Waddle sort of gets the scraps there. So it's just like, because I was a fantasy manager of Jalen Waddle last year, and I thought I could sort of benefit with sort of the reasoning that you're putting here, but just like, it was still very much a Tyreek Hill led offense. And so I still very much have yet to see the decline to make me think that, okay, now finally we'll start to see the resurgence here of another receiver outside Tyreek Hill in this passing offense. So for me, I still think it's definitely top 3.
This is what worries me
but I don't think he'll finish top 1. I will stand by that. I don't think he'll finish top 1.
So
he'll be drafted. I think he should be drafted top 1
as
the top receiver, but he will not finish top 1. I have a different receiver who will finish top 1.
Ooh, interesting tease. It reminds me a lot when Deebo Samuel, and obviously this is not a perfect comparison because they have very, very different play styles, but same type of offense. I remember Deebo Samuel's first breakout season. Everybody had him in their top 5. And again, he didn't finish.
Next year. Yeah. The very next year.
Yeah. The very next year, everybody had him in their top 5. He didn't finish badly. If memory serves, he finished, bottom tier of the top 10, which, anyone would be happy with that. But I think that's kind of where Tyreek Hill's at now, is because I think the more Jalen Waddle kind of, progresses, and on top of everything else, you can't keep going deep to Tyreek Hill. That's going to get too easy to game plan against. Someone is going to figure out.
See, you say that, but they find a way to do it.
I'm telling you, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I'm not going to bet against win ever. Now, if I get Tyreek Hill as wide receiver number 2, I'm fucking thrilled. But I'm not taking him as number 1.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting there. But yeah, I'm still siding with Tyreek Hill. That speed is just such a weapon in that offense. Mike McDaniel is creative in getting him open as well. So yeah, for me, I'm still taking him number 1. Will he finish number 1? I don't think so. I think another receiver will finish there at number 1. But we're sort of talking here, Tad, about potential busts about Tyreek Hill not finishing in the top 5 for you. So I mean, just who's a more legitimate candidate for this bust category that you have in your eyes here at the wide receiver position?
Excuse me, listening audience. I just need 5 seconds. Yeah, when it comes to this guy, all I can say is don't do it. I am so sick of hearing about this guy. I'm so sick of hearing about, this could finally be the year. I'm telling you, his number has something to do with it. I'm dead serious when I say that. Stop drafting Chris Olave to be wide receiver number 1. Don't do it. Okay. Stop it. I swear, and like I said, I swear to God, it's because he wears number 12. And all people our age is like, oh, he's the next Marquise Colston. He's not the next Marquise Colston. Stop it. Stop doing that. Let me read a couple stats just to prove how right I am. Okay, so he's a fine wide receiver number 2. He's fine. You draft him in rounds 3. Well, 3's a little early. You draft him in 4, 5, 6. I think that's great value for him because he does produce like that. And let me prove it. In 2022, over under wide receiver number 25 for Chris Olave.
I think under.
Yeah, I'm an asshole. I cheated there. Exactly. Wide receiver number 25.
Of course.
Sorry, that was mean. That was mean. I promise I will not cheat on this one. Wait, so if you go under, that means like 14-1, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Okay, so over under wide receiver number 15.
Yeah, so under would be 14-1. Over would be 16 or higher, I guess.
Just clarifying math, not my strongest suit, but carry on.
Wait, so over under, what's the statistic here?
Wide receiver 15 last year.
Last year?
Yep.
I think under.
Over. Wide receiver 16. That's my point. That reaction right there where you're like,
well, so I guess technically that would be under. So I think you did the names wrong. So I still got it wrong. I'll give you that. But
people are asking him to consistently be a top. I don't care about math when I can't understand it. Wow, that's how I'm going to leave that reference alone. I just nipped that in the butt. Stop shaking your head. This is what you've done. You put a filter on me. But point being is Chris Olave is consistently drafted as a top 15 receiver. He's never finished top 15. And look, I'm not saying it's anything against him personally. I'm not saying he's a bad receiver because honestly, coming out of Ohio State, I actually really liked him in the draft. And this is why when he was drafted by the Saints, I was a little concerned because I was concerned about the direction the Saints were heading, which is the worst salary cap hell, honestly, not even just football, maybe in all of sports I've seen in my entire life. Like this franchise is going to be in the dumps for at least the next 2 to 3 years, unless whatever new GM they hire pulls some real Houdini shit. But I don't think Olave is in the right offensive system. I don't think he has the right quarterback. I don't think he has the right skill set to be a number 1 receiver. It just feels like Tyler Lockett being forced to be a number 1 receiver. He's a bottom tier wide receiver 2 to me. And the stats I just pointed out proves that is like a wide receiver 2 is his ceiling.
Yeah, I view him as a wide receiver 2 as well. Like I don't see him as that wide receiver. I
think a lot of people are looking at that name still and thinking like a lot of people are having like Drew Brees nostalgia years from the Saints thinking like, Saints receiver.
And I think the biggest thing that I think a lot of people have optimism around is that, look at the situation that he landed in. And in his rookie year, he was still able to contribute and be a good fantasy producer. And then you see the next year, he makes that jump up again. I know you said that, that's still great for wide receiver 1 numbers, but it's definitely still in that wide receiver 2 category. So now it's like you look, he's coming into his next year now. He's growing in this offense. Hopefully, they got the Derek Carr situation figured out. Maybe we'll see Spencer Rattler halfway through the season. I don't know what's going to happen, but I still think that's why you see some managers with that sort of optimism that he could grow into that wide receiver 1. I'm still very much in your boat. That's like he's very much in that entrenched as a wide receiver 2 option, but you can sort of see why some people have that optimism, but I totally understand your point.
But that's where my frustration is like exactly like, wait, I'm not saying this is your own personal thoughts because I understand you're just trying to communicate the other side, but I think the Derek Carr thing worked out. What evidence do we have of that? We have zero evidence other than like, hey, I think the Derek Carr situation worked out.
Just turned it off as soon as we said Derek Carr. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. and for once I agree with him because it's maddening because I think most Saints fans are like this too, where I think we got the Derek Carr thing figured out. No. You don't think you got it figured out. You hope you got it figured out. And guess what? The older a quarterback gets, the lower the chances of that actually happening are. So again, I'm not saying he's going to like be a complete bust where like zero draft value, but I think a lot of people are going to draft him like as like, oh shit, this could be my like sleeper receiver. We talk about this all the time where there's a draft that's going terribly, terribly wrong. You don't have a receiver, you're in round 4 and you're kind of freaking out, being like, I need a receiver. I don't think Olave is going to be your dude that saves your roster.
Yeah, that I agree with that. Also, I totally played an age card where all of you in our listening audience here, I said this when I said Alfred Rose turning it off. I don't think there's any sort of listening medium that sort of has a knob
if that
anymore.
was well, not even that, but just you saying dis.
Yeah. So yeah, totally
Is there a
showing my
show
age
on
there.
MTV, Dis Yo Mama? Is that a thing, or it was just Yo
Is that what
Mama?
it's called? I don't
I don't
know.
know. I didn't watch
I don't
MTV.
even watch MTV anymore. Once again, play my age card. I don't even watch MTV anymore. So
Yeah, of course, neither one of us watch MTV. We have brain cells.
oh wow. Okay. Alienating our MTV listeners for sure.
Yeah, all 10 of them.
Wow. I'm gonna get to my bust here because I'm so surprised that people are viewing this guy as a potential wide receiver too. When A, he's a rookie, and B, the situation that he landed in does not give me any sort of optimism that he could sort of fulfill a wide receiver 2 type role. And that's Malik Neighbors with the New York Giants. Like, I mean, I see the optimism. Once again, very similar stuff that we talked about with Chris Olave, where it's like he's got the skill level, he came from a very good school there, but just for talent production just outrageous, right? But landing here in New York, this is the thing that worries me. Tad, the last time the Giants had 1,000-yard receiving receiver.
Oh God, don't tell me, don't add it.
All right,
Victor Cruz.
It was not Victor Cruz. A little bit later than Victor Cruz. 2018, when Odell Beckham Jr. (OBJ) accomplished that.
I try to avoid the obvious one.
Yeah, but this time it was good to go with the obvious one. This was also the last time a Giants receiver finished in the top 20 at position in PPR league. So,
good God.
Now you look at this offense, and I mean, they took some hits in the offseason that I think is going to be hard for anybody to trust anybody in this offense. Like whether it's Daniel Jones, whether it's Devin Singletary, whether it's Darius Slayton, whatever it is. You look at the retirement of Darren Waller, that's going to affect this offense. Saquon Barkley, no longer your main running back in the backfield. He's playing for your rival division rival in the Philadelphia Eagles. The offensive line, I know they drafted to sort of upgrade that, but that was the issues that's what led to Daniel Jones getting hurt last year. So all of a sudden, are things going to get fixed over a year? Optimism hopefully is there to hopefully lead to them becoming a little bit more competitive this year, but I still don't see that there, where you still got a lot of carryover from last year coming into this year. So it's like, can you fix that much? I don't know. That worries me a lot as far as the offensive line. And so, yeah, if you're banking a lot, if you're watching the hard knocks of the offseason, I think, Tad, you brought this up, where it's like, okay, if we lose Saquon Barkley,
I got another great scene to bring up.
What is our offensive identity? So that's where the GM, Joe Shane, said that's like, okay, we need to lead on Daniel Jones. We need to make sure that this is the franchise quarterback. We need to sort of give him more of the reins of this offense. And based on what I've seen, I don't like the optimism around Daniel Jones. So, like I said, no doubt Malik Neighbors is a future star in the NFL, but this situation in New York with Daniel Jones, with the rest of the offense, that's what worries me this year. Because also you have to look at the fact, there's been a lot of rookie wide receivers that came into the league and absolutely blown up. But the biggest thing that they had on their side, Tad, is they had veteran quarterbacks that have been there and done that. Let me give you a few examples. We talked about this guy, Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua blew up last year because he had Matthew Stafford. You look at 3 years ago, in 2021, Joe Burrow, established quarterback in the league. He got to play with his running mate in Jamar Chase. He blew up in 2021 because he was playing with Joe Burrow. Then you look at Justin Jefferson in 2020. He had a sensational
former
year.
Teammate too, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but former teammate between Chase and Burrow.
Exactly. And then you look at Justin Jefferson in 2020. He got to benefit from playing with Kirk Cousins, a veteran in the league as well. So this is a very shaky situation for me. So the fact that so many people are ranking Malik Neighbors, like as far as pre-draft rankings, in the top 24, so that is wide receiver 2 territory. Like I said, that's why I'm so surprised people are viewing his skill level just that optimistically, that just all of a sudden things are going to be alleviated from all the, trade wreck of a season that we saw last year with the New York Giants. I don't think any of that is going to fix anything this year, just with Malik Neighbors playing the position this year. So I definitely not at wide receiver 2. Maybe a chance at like a wide receiver 3, possibly a bench option to take a risk there. Maybe everything will work out. But for me, for people to target him, just like you said, people are targeting Chris Olave as a wide receiver 1. People targeting Malik Neighbors as a wide receiver 2. That worries me a lot. Or I guess it doesn't worry me that much if somebody else does it. That's
well,
like,
no,
that's
popping
We're
the
the same league.
That's popping the
it.
champagne shit right there. I will fully admit, even my last pick, if Olave's on the board, and I'm like, all right, please follow me, please follow me, please follow me, and then like the dude right in front of me takes Neighbors, I'm popping the champagne because I'm like, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
And that was actually you already kind of hit my counter there. Does he count as a bust? Because I'm in the same boat as you, and I would say this happens rarely. I feel like it definitely does not happen every year. Because I know a lot of people be like, well, I said this last year about the Carolina Panthers, but I don't remember. I think you were pretty much on the same boat where we were both like, don't count out Adam Thielen.
Yes. We were high on the Panthers last year, surprisingly.
Yeah, surprisingly. But bottom line being is like, I feel like every other 2 years this happens where there's a team where you're like, oh yeah, don't touch anyone on there.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. And yeah, this year's the Giants. I'm not touching a single, and we always say the opposite of this on this podcast where you see those 3 letters next to their name and you kind of don't stay away from them just because of those 3 letters. This is the case where, yes, stay away from them. In those 3 letters. And I'll tell you the reason I laughed when you brought up Hard Knocks was I think it was I want to say the receivers coach had his 3 kids in his coaching room, just watching them, and he asked them, all 3 of them, it was like a boy around like, I don't know, 8 years old, 6 years old, and then a little girl like 4 years old maybe. He goes, okay guys, I don't know, who should we draft? And both the boys said Jane.
That was Joe.
Oh, was that? Yeah, I love that scene so much.
Where his kids, who should we draft? Yes.
I just saw it on Twitter, so that's why I don't know the full context behind it. But I just love how one boy goes Jane Daniels, the other was JJ McCarthy, and the little girl is just like Blake Neighbors. It's like, really? That's how you're making your calls now? It's like, good God. But no, yeah, it's nothing against Neighbors. I think he'll get a fair amount of targets. Definitely a worthy waiver wire target. 100%. Like, kind of see how that production turns out. But if you're drafting to be your wide receiver too, my friend, you're finishing last. So that's my only real worry, and we're playing semantics at this point of just like, does he count as a bust? But if you're drafting him to be a wide receiver too, so that's a hard thing about where we're at right now. So I won't give away the specific date, but the night of recording right now, we're roughly about a week away from fantasy drafts really kicking off, and we can see projected ADP compared to actual ADP. So because I have seen his projected ADP, but I refuse to believe it. Up until this point, I think it's pure clickbait. I think it's, First Take. What's the Fox? I almost said Fox News. What's the Fox Sports one?
Speak, right? I think that's what it's called.
It is definitely not Speak.
Okay, then I don't know what it is. First Take is
whatever the stupid one is with Skip Bayless. That one.
The Herd with Colin Howard, right?
No, that's his. No, that's Skip Bayless, dude.
Oh, Skip Bayless, yeah. I don't know.
Someone's gonna hit us up with this, but anyway, point being is they're both the same thing. They're stupid talk show, radio meant to like just stir people up. I think that's the type of content they come out with. Could Malik Neighbors be a good fan? No, he can't. I completely agree with you on that. I am staying away from any Giants player, absolutely, unequivocally.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
It's the bad Batman versus Superman scene where it's like, if there's even 1% chance they fail, we have to take it as an absolute certainty. Yeah, no, it's an absolute certainty. This Giants offense is going to be an absolute dumpster fire. Yeah. Which means Shadur Sanders, welcome to New York.
You think that's going to be the thing? You think,
no, I think it's going to be Carson back.
Back.
But either way, I think the Giants are, spoiler alert for our future mock draft episode, hopefully in about a month. Yes, I think the Giants are going to end up with the first overall pick. That's a bad roster, man.
Oh, all right. I have a little bit more optimism about their defense, but yeah, their offense doesn't excite me in any sort of way to sort of give me any sort of hope.
It's a good thing it's a defensive league.
All right, Ted. So obviously we're talking about here, excitement and things that we're staying away from, but obviously let's stick more to that excitement part here. And let's sort of talk about some wide receiver sleepers. So who are some guys that you have your eye on as far as guys you could target later in the draft that could end up being contributors to your starting roster?
Oh, my friend, you want to talk excitement? Let's talk excitement. Let's talk Carolina Panthers.
Let's do it. I do like, once again, maybe we're falling into the same trap as last year, but I still have a little bit of optimism for the Panthers this year.
This is why we're a great match, is because I was being completely sarcastic, but you're like, yeah, actually, that is kind of exciting. Where like 90% of other people would be like, what?
For the sole reason that I want Xavier Legette to actually pan out as a superstar, because I just want to hear that guy talk every single day, every media moment.
Look, obviously there's a receiver out of Texas that I really want to succeed. It's not Xavier Worthy, But other than him, AD Mitchell, by the way, for those of you who don't get the reference, and before you no, whatever. But other than AD Mitchell, Keon Coleman and Leggett, I want those two guys to succeed the most. I want them to be so good. But while Leggett slowly comes along and Thielen, not so slowly, gets older, I think that one of the most underrated moves this offseason was the Carolina Panthers trading for Deontay Johnson. I love that move when it happened. They barely had to give up a draft capital, I believe it was a 4th-round pick. I really, really think that he could be the go-to weapon for Bryce Young next year. Now, yes, he had a very, very down year last year, but if there's anything promising to take away from it, this is a surprising stat that I found while doing research. He had 14 yards average per catch last year.
That's pretty high.
That's very high. And consider this, if you're in a half PPR league, like most of mine are, that is 2 points per catch right there. Now, the whole problem last year was he wasn't getting a whole lot of catches. But, Amir, I have a pop quiz for you. Do you want to guess what the Pittsburgh Steelers' favorite song is? Of all time.
Of all time?
Of all time.
I don't know. Back in Black by AC/DC?
Well, I'm shocked you didn't say Black and Yellow. That was the
That's
obvious guess.
Okay,
that was the obvious guess, but no, you were wrong. Is Blame Canada from South Park. Yeah. Is it because, God, Matt Canada just wrecked this dude's career? Because, let me read off the stats before this horrible last year. In 2022, Deontay Johnson had 88 catches for 900 yards. Granted, 0 touchdowns, just so people don't think I'm nitpicking stats, so fair. But even then, 88 catches for 900 yards, it's a pretty solid wide receiver 3 flex territory right there. Now, in 2021, he had 107 catches for 1,600 yards, 1,160 yards, and 10 touchdowns.
Wow, okay.
Yes. And 2020, 88 catches, back to 88, 923 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson has proven himself to be, if not a wide receiver, a borderline wide receiver 1 capable receiver, definitely a legitimate fantasy threat to get you points. Now, I'm not saying draft him as a sleeper to be your wide receiver 1. That would be a definite mistake. We still don't know if this, how this new Carolina offense is going to look. We still don't know if Bryce Young is legit or not. And by the way, I am not on this bandwagon of already calling Bryce Young's career. I think this is way too premature. Last year, it kind of reminds me of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Was that Trevor Lawrence's rookie year with Urban Meyer? I think it was.
Yes. It was definitely a rookie year for Trevor Lawrence under Urban Meyer, yes.
Okay, so I think it's kind of the same situation where it's just such a disaster of a year. It's just kind of a wash. He didn't look great, but we also can't really judge him because it wasn't his fault. I do have my concerns, or I am definitely – Bryce Young is going to be one of the more interesting players to look out for. Yeah. But I liked him coming out of the draft. I think you did too. I think I liked him a little bit more than you, but I think I don't remember. But point being is, I think there's still a lot of promise left in this Panthers offense, and if it's going to really explode, it's going to be Deontay Johnson. So this is a guy whose name is so deep in most drafts that is on a team where, again, you see those 3 letters next to his name, CAR. Most people are gonna be like, stay away from that. I know what happened last year, and that you could land him in the last 3 rounds, and he could end up being a mainstay on your roster. So actually, Deontay Johnson might be my sleeper of the year, because I really think he could blow up for. I'm not saying he's going to be a 1,300 yard, 13 touchdown receiver, but screw it, second to last round pick. I take a receiver who gets me 900 yards, 10 touchdowns. I am very happy with that production.
Yeah, the recency bias is either going to help you when you're going to drafts, because people are going to look at that, Carolina next to his name and be like, you know what, I saw what happened last year. I'm not sure if I want.
That's the thing too, because sorry to interrupt, but I do this a lot too, where I'll click. I hate going off projected stats. I never do that because those projected stats are always so overblown, and I always go off last year's stats. So if you do the same thing I did, but with no prior knowledge of, like I read off the last 3 years, you're looking at him and be like, what the hell is it? No, he's not draftable. But you're forgetting that he had almost 3,000 yards the last 3 years before that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's going to benefit Deontay Johnson is that, yeah, he's a PPR type of player. So for
Oh,
sure, if
yeah.
you're playing in a
Most
PPR
definitely.
league, then that's where you're going to get a lot of your points. I very much see that Xavier Legette will get a lot of the touchdowns in this offense
Rookie
compared to
struggles,
Deontay
man.
Johnson. I still think that because of his big body and just his leaping ability, and I mean, I talked about this when I was watching the tape of him back in South Carolina. I was like, he bailed out Spencer Rattler on
He
so
did.
many
He
throws that
did.
it's like I could see a very similar thing happening here with Bryce Young. Like if he has to get an off-platform throw, he doesn't get all his full weight under it. It's like Xavier Legette will be able to bail him out there. Whereas when he has the time, he'll be able to find the right read and hit Deontay Johnson then. So that's why I see Deontay Johnson racking up a lot of receptions and yards. But then when it comes to touchdowns, he'll get a handful, but he won't get, like you said, anywhere near double digits. That's where it's like maybe you'll lean more on Xavier Legette. So you'll see both of those guys benefiting from this offense for sure. But yeah, to people who will overlook Deontay Johnson as a solid contributor this year, those are the people you want in your league because, yeah, that's where you're going to benefit the most for sure.
No, I agree. The only thing that scared me off Leggett, like I said, is the rookie aspect of it because rookies tend to either they tend to do either one of two things. One, start a little slow and then skyrocket.
Yeah.
Or start really hot and then kind of like plateau.
Peter out,
I think that's gonna kind of be where he's at. Well, meanwhile, I think Deontay Johnson's gonna be the a little bit more consistent one. So
sure.
honestly, it wouldn't shock me if I almost said worthy. If Deontay Johnson finished like wide receiver 28 and Leggett finished like wide receiver 35, like it's like maybe a 10-point difference.
Yeah, that seems very,
which would
very
be about a touchdown.
realistic.
To be fair to you.
Feels about realistic. Feels very realistic there. My sleeper is a guy that I feel like is getting under-mentioned with the Los Angeles Chargers, and that's Josh Palmer. So, I mean, everybody's obviously talking.
Good job. I thought you were about to say Quentin Johnson. I was going to kill you.
But that's the thing. I feel a lot of people are talking about Quentin Johnston because they're hoping that he can rebound from, his dropsies from last season, his rookie year, and hopefully Jim Harbaugh will use him correctly this year. So it's like a lot of people talking about him. Everybody's obviously talking about Lab McConkey because of just how much he's going to contribute to his offense and just his route running ability and his catching and all that stuff. So he's going to be an option there. But not as many people are talking about Josh Palmer and how good he was in spot starts for the Chargers last year when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams both got hurt. Because you look at his season last year, they're not fantastic, but I mean, he had 44 targets, 26 receptions, 385 yards, no touchdowns, unfortunately, in 6 starts last season. Now, take this for what you want, Tad. I know you said that you're not big on projections here, but it's like if you were to extrapolate this data that I just laid out for you over the course of a 17-game season, if he was to start every 17-game season, this is what is potentially in store for him in 2024. 125 targets, 74 receptions, 1,091 receiving yards. Obviously, there's no touchdowns they scored, so you can't really extrapolate that data. That pretty much left it up to 0. But that's very promising numbers. Like, I mean, those are the type of numbers that you would see from a wide receiver 2, definitely a high-end wide receiver 3, a flex option for sure. And like I said, he's sort of getting ignored in this offense because more attention is going to the other receivers. So Quentin Johnson, like I said, I think Jim Harbaugh will use it the right way, but he's more of that deep threat. He'll stretch the field for you guys. You got Lad McConkey, which, just like you brought up, he's a guy that I think can either start out really hot and then peter out, or he'll start slow and then he'll eventually realize his potential there. So we brought this up before. We talked about Jim Harbaugh during a head coaching deep dive. He likes to run the football. So we don't know what this passing offense is exactly going to look like with the very capable quarterback in Justin Herbert. I brought this up many times. Jim Harbaugh has never had a quarterback like Justin Herbert in his offense before. So you have to think that maybe they'll unleash him a little bit more and see, like, just realize his potential a lot more in this offense. When it's still going to be limited. So we'll see a lot of, like, the JJ McCarthy-esque offense or Alex Smith-led offense where it's like, he'll do enough, but they'll lead more of the running game, or where they'll go full-fledged balance. I don't know what it's going to look like, but regardless, I feel like Josh Palmer is that type of guy that, he's going to go pretty late in drafts because people are going to probably draft Lab McConkey as the first receiver for the Chargers group probably being drafted, and then Quentin Johnson will probably be the second guy. Josh Palmer will be that third guy. And if you fall into that category where it's like all these other two receivers, for the Chargers are being drafted, Palmer may be that guy that may end up being that guy who could sort of rival these other Chargers receivers as far as top fantasy production in that receiver room for the Chargers. And so he's a guy that's going unnoticed, but by tuning into our episode, you could be the guy who will notice him and he'll benefit you the most because, yeah, I see the most potential with him in this Chargers offense. Also, you have to look at the fact that he has carryover playing with Herbert last year. That relationship matters, that sort of carryover, that's going to play a big difference as well.
Wow, almost perfect time mark here. Note to future Tad, 44 minutes on this episode. Time mark this and get ready for about week 7 or 8 because I am going to tell you exactly what Josh Palmer is going to be. Josh
Okay.
Palmer is going to be the receiver who mostly goes undrafted despite your sleeper pick, which, by the way, I don't hate it. There, you provide very, very sound reasoning behind it. However, I'm telling you exactly, and this is why I had future me. Or did I say past me last time? Future me.
No, you said future you.
Okay, future me is going to timestamp this, and we're going to, if we find a way, replay on the episodes because I'm telling you right now what's going to happen. It's going to be a Monday night. I'm going to be very tired. I'm going to be very grumpy because it's going to be in the middle of October. And what's going to happen is we're going to be discussing Josh Palmer as the hot waiver pickup of the year. Because what's gonna happen is he's gonna go 4 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, and there's the 13-point game. Oh my God, it's the time to pick him up. And that is exactly what's gonna happen to him. Because let me read off some, in case anyone could tell, I was looking this up because I was like, God, who are those names again? Let me read off a couple different Chargers, 2 different names. And let me tell you if they have anything in common with Josh Palmer. Their names are Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller. What do they have in common with Josh Palmer? And you know what? Let me throw Gerald Everett in there too.
Those are guys we talked about midway through the season. I remember.
No, not even midway through the season.
Towards the end of the season?
No, not even that. We've been talking about them over the course of multiple seasons. I'm like, this is the dude. He's pretty athletic. He had a couple good games last season. This is his year, and they never do it. I mean, Everett's definitely off the roster. I know that for sure. Is Kelly and Spiller even still on the? There's no way about that.
Spiller's still on the roster. Kelly, I don't think so.
Oof, R.I.P. Kelly. Point being is the Chargers always do this to you, man, where they look really good. And you're right, it is a total unknown going into a totally new offense. And it would be different if it was a Sean McVay offense, in which case I'd go, yeah, that's actually a pretty solid pick. But like you said, we have all the evidence to the contrary of, oh, maybe now they'll kind of lean on him. I just, this is the riskiest pick of the whole episode.
Riskiest pick of the whole episode.
Riskiest pick of the whole episode.
Interesting. All right, Tad. Well, I think that's a perfect transition point because, yeah, clearly it seems like that's a little bit of a bolder take by me, but hit me with your bold prediction for the wide receiver position in fantasy football this year.
Yeah, this is probably my riskiest take of the whole series.
I agree.
So far.
So far, sure, you could add that.
What's the Simpsons joke? Or this is the worst day of my life.
Worst day of my life. Worst day of your life
so far.
Yeah. For the Simpsons movie, yeah.
Love that joke. Also, I was told to lead, not to read. Oh, God, that just proved true. Simpsons did it again. Damn it. Anyway, so I think that my hot take is that there we go. Gotta protect myself. My dad's a lawyer. That 3 Chiefs receivers will finish inside the top 25 by season's end. And notice how I said receivers, not receivers and tight ends. I'm excluding Travis Kelce from this list in case you thought I was going to cheat and include Travis Kelce. No. I think it's going to be Xavier Worthy. I think it's going to be Rashee Rice. And I think Hollywood Brown will all finish in the top 25 by season's end. Now, let me tell you why. You look at the way the season's probably going to play out for the Chiefs. Now, I know nothing's been made official. Apparently, the Chiefs owner is meeting with league officials right now about potential Rashee Rice suspension. Let's all be real. It's going to be a slap on the wrist, like a 2 or 3 game suspension, but he's going to get suspended. There's no way the NFL lets him get away with that because that just causes a whole shitstorm of PR they don't need. So Rashee Rice, I don't think he's going to be out for, I'd be shocked if it got up to 4 games. I think 3 max. Maybe one would be pretty surprising. I think 2 or 3 is probably what it's going to end up being.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that 4. I think it's going to be 4.
Really? Yeah. I'm leaning towards I feel like 3 is the sweet spot where it's like, it's not totally like, whoa, that's kind of heavy. And, where it's 2 is kind of where you get people being like, oh, what the hell's going on here? So anyway, that opens the door for Worthy and Hollywood Brown, right? Well, let's look at the other 2 receivers then. First off, Worthy. As we've already talked about, receivers usually start hot, kind of plateau, or start off cold, kind of rise up. So let's just assume Worthy does that. I think that will lead to plenty of reception, touchdown, receiving yard opportunities for him. Hollywood Brown is the definition of a streaky fantasy player. That dude will score. I mean, Baltimore fans who watched that Miami game, oh God, we're getting old. What was that, like 5 years ago?
I think so.
I don't like that. That's too long ago. Anyway, they'll remember that he scored 50 points one game and then like 8 games next. I think that is the exact type of production we're going to see from the Chiefs offense. And on top of everything, while I was doing research on this, I was kind of researching Chiefs fantasy wide receiver outlook. And here's the part that I love is I saw, because of course this came from Reddit. There was a Reddit comment saying, no. Last time Mahomes had a receiving core this good, Juju Smith-Schuster finished wide receiver number 35. And that's when I knew this is a good hot take. You want to know why? Because he was their best receiver.
Yeah,
that's been the whole problem with this Chiefs offense is because let's transport ourselves back to, I want to say like October, November of last year. And I know it seems like, oh no, people are going to do revisionist history of like, we never thought that way. We all thought the Chiefs offense was doomed. Because they had no receiving option, and Mahomes was running for his freaking life out there because their running game couldn't work because they knew, okay, if we just blitz him all the time, either we get to Mahomes or we stop the run, so it's perfect. So that's why I think that this passing game, now that they had 3 legitimate receivers, and I know I kind of shit on Xavier Worthy during the draft process, but I also said, I specifically remember saying this, I will go back and find the timestamp because unfortunately past Tad did not do it like present Tad did in this episode. I said that if Xavier Worthy goes to a contender, he'll be good. I just thought this was back when like he was getting like top 15 hype.
Yes.
And I was like, that's a bad idea.
That's not a smart idea.
But going to the Chiefs, I think it takes enough pressure off him where, now you're going to find Xavier Worthy open down the field like 40 yards occasionally. So do I think they're all going to finish in the top 20, top 15, top 10? Absolutely not. They're not going to be, the most explosive offense we've ever seen. They're not going to be the new New Orleans Saints. But what I think they are, this is the beginning of, if they can lock all these guys down, is the beginning of the Cincinnati Bengals with D. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase. I think that is the origin that we're about to see this year.
So I'm going to read to you the 3 players that finished 23, 24, and 25 from last year at PPR League. So coming in at 23 was Jordan Addison. He had 70 receptions, 911 receiving yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns.
All right, so sorry. 70 receptions,
911 receiving yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns. Then you got Jacoby Myers at 24. He had 71 receptions, 807 receiving yards, and 8 receiving touchdowns. Jaden Reed came in at number 25, and that was 64 receptions with 793 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns. So
Xavier Reed, Hollywood Brown,
Xavier Reed.
Xavier Worthy. Sorry. I got Jaden Reed. I knew, I was like, all right, Xavier Worthy. Jaden is replacing Jaden Reed. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice. Because I think even with Rashee Rice's suspension, that dude's going to come back with a vengeance. That man is going to run faster than he drove on the highway.
But regardless, it's like you see a ballpark of like, maybe 65 to 70 receptions, looks like at least 800 receiving yards and at least 8 touchdowns. So you think all 3 of those receivers that you listed, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Marquise Hollywood Brown, will all reach those numbers in this Chiefs offense?
Add up, because clearly we've established I'm not good at math. Add up those totals for me.
Like I said, receptions about 65 to 70.
No, I don't give a shit about receptions. I'm talking receiving touchdowns.
Receiving touchdowns. So that should be about 8 per. So that's 24 touchdowns.
Huh. Has Patrick Mahomes ever finished over 24 touchdowns? I don't know.
Just the receivers alone. This is obviously excluding
Travis Kelce's getting. Tell me Travis Kelce's age is not beginning to show. I'm not saying he's done.
It is. But I think that's just a little bit too optimistic of a take to take with all 3 receivers beating those types of averages at each position. So I could see maybe,
let's not forget Patrick.
100% one of them. I could possibly see 2 of them, but 3 of them, that's pretty extreme. But once again, I think that's why they call it a bold prediction. So, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. But for me, it's a little too bold. For me,
I'm going to do an added. Oh, what's that? Pirates the game? Yes, that is a little too bold. That is a reference only one of our listeners is going to understand. I'll add on another bold prediction. Patrick Mahomes, 48 touchdowns on the year.
48 passing touchdowns or total?
Passing.
48 passing touchdowns. Wow. So you think he
sort of goes back 54 total.
Wow. So you think he goes back to like those 2018 numbers where, he goes, okay.
This is the best Chiefs team we've seen in a while, dude.
That's very optimistic. That is very optimistic for that Chiefs team. So All right, so I brought up the wide receiver 25 from last year in PPR leagues, Jaden Reed. Well, I think he's going to completely change that aspect. He's going to jump a lot higher. I think Jaden Reed will finish as a top 10 wide receiver in PPR leagues this year. So Reed led Green Bay with all receiving categories, with the exception of the receiving touchdowns and targets. He was tied for the team lead in total touchdowns, and he was only 3 targets away from leading the team in receiving targets as well. He missed one game on the season. Now, like I mentioned, Reed finished as the 25th best wide receiver in PPR leagues, which puts him in that wide receiver 2 territory. While this Packers offense last year did not lead the league in any sort of passing statistic, they were very much middle of the pack of all of them. The biggest thing is like you sort of understand that because they're going from Aaron Rodgers, a proven Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winner, proven MVP winner as well, to Jordan Love, who a lot of people had question marks surrounding him the entire season leading up to the season. They had so many questions.
I thought that dude was going to bust so hard, and Jordan
Love,
were
not alone. There are a lot of people that felt that way. And then what did he do? He proved his worth, and you can imagine that now heading into this season in 2024, they'll lean on his passing offense, I think, a lot more. They're one of the youngest offenses in the league. You can see that chemistry that Jordan Love was brewing with all the young receivers that they had. But while they have a ton of promising receivers, I think just Reed strikes me as that go-to option for Jordan Love in that offense. Like, I mean, you got Christian Watson. Talk to me when he can stay healthy for a full season because the guy has yet to prove that. So that doesn't worry me at all. Romeo Doubs is a guy that I think can be a good option in this offense. He was the guy who stepped up when Jaden Reed did get hurt, and he is a very go-to piece for him. But I could see him leading in receiving targets. He led the team in receiving targets, and he tied Jaden Reed in receiving touchdowns last season. But the biggest thing is that he started the season strong, and then it went towards Jordan Reed at the end of the season. So you can see Jordan Love leading more on Jordan Reed towards the end of the season. Dontavia Wicks.
Reed, you said Jordan twice there.
I said Jordan Reed, didn't I? Yeah, Jaden Reed.
I get Jordan Love, Jaden Reed. It's tough. Trust me, of all people, I get it.
Yeah, believe me. Dontavia Wicks, a lot of people have this guy as like a deep sleeper that he can emerge from this offense, but until I could see it more consistently in this offense, that's the thing that worries me there. And then both tight ends, I love the receiving options that they had there with Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, but I think they'll lean more on the receiver option in this passing offense more. So Jaden Reed for me just strikes me as a guy that just is going to be that go-to piece for Jordan Love. Like I said, down the stretch, he was a guy that was being relied on by Jordan Love in the playoffs as well. He led the team in receiving targets as well as receptions. So, I mean, this is just a guy that I think when the time is needed for him to when the time is needed for the passing offense to make a big play, they're going to Jaden Reed. And so I think because of that, he'll see a lot more uptick in targets, receptions, and of course, yards and touchdowns, which makes him sort of, like I said, very fringe top 10 type of wide receiver in this offense.
Okay, so sorry, I'll be totally honest. I was barely listening at the beginning of that.
Okay.
You kind of cut out at the end. I think there's a little bit of lag there or something. So I get it. You think Jaden Reed's going to be good. Where do you think he's going to finish?
Like I said, top 10. Top 10, 100%. I can see that happening.
The hell is wrong with you?
What else wrong with you with your take? That was even more ludicrous.
First off, that was a great spit take right there.
Where's Cap? He's probably got hella wet just now.
I did just wake him up from his nap.
See?
That actually did happen. He's looking to miss. Like, the hell is that? I honestly think this might be his first time seeing miss. Look, I agree with you. I think Jaden Reed's a fine sleeper, but here's my concern with it's nothing against Jaden Reed as a player, because I actually like him a lot. But I know you kind of brought these up before. Let me read off some stats from last season. So in terms of targets, Jaden Reed was second on the Packers with 94. Romeo Doubs finished first in 96. Dontavia Wicks with 58. Christian Watson with 53, but injuries played a role there. Tucker Kraft with 40. Luke Musgrave with 46. That's why I think the way you watch this Packers offense roll, it reminds me a lot, not perfectly, because they don't take as many deep shots. They don't really air it out as well, but just in terms of fantasy production, it reminds me a lot. I think if Jordan Love stays true to this type of progression and he stays, as good as he was in the last 6 games of last year, they're going to be the new New Orleans Saints of fantasy football, where, every year we're like, oh, it's going to be Marquise Colston. Okay, wasn't Marquise Colston top 10 that year? It's fine. It's going to be Lance Moore because he took over after Okay, it's Marquise Colston again. Okay, no, that's okay. this is Marquise Colston. Jeremy Shockey, what are you doing here? And it's like, that's what's going to happen. Especially, there's a reason I waited until I hit those 2 tight ends. Is you have 2 very talented tight ends. You have 3 or 4 pretty talented receivers. I don't trust any of them. I trust them enough to draft. I don't trust enough of them to be top 10, top 15, maybe even top 20 finishers. And ironically enough, maybe it's just because my draft crush is still there. I'm still a believer in Christian Watson, although I will say I will admit of any of the receivers, he has the worst case against him.
Okay. I will lock it up that Jayden Reed will finish in the top 20. Top 10, I could possibly understand. Like I said, Romeo Dobbs definitely played him very much dollar for dollar as far as stats there. But yeah, for sure, you can lock it up. He'll finish top 20.
If he doesn't, you have to wear a Seahawks shirt for the year.
Done. I can do that.
Oh, yes, let's go. Future Tad, time market.
But yeah, okay, we got some of our bolder predictions, I think, with the wide receiver episode for sure. But I mean, yeah, that will close our episode here of fantasy wide receivers. But like we talked about, we did rankings for the running backs as well as quarterbacks. Check back on our social media handles for the full rankings there, and listen back to those episodes as well, because we went over a lot of great content, very similar to the wide receiver episodes. But guys, like we talked about, we didn't discuss our wide receiver rankings, but go to our social media handles. You got us on Twitter. You got me at UpTheSide23. You got Ted Decide94. Got the show handle at The Decide Guys, and of course on Instagram at The Decide Guys as well. So hit up those social media handles. That is where you'll see the full rankings 1 through 24 for my rankings, as well as Tad's at the wide receiver position, plus the ones we already mentioned. Like I said, running back, quarterback, the ones that are going to come, tight ends, kickers, defense, all that will be coming to those social media handles as well. Guys, subscribe or listen to your podcast. Watch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And please, please, please support our parent network at LAFB Network, because they're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers. Both of them have started training camps, and they're giving you a lot of great training camp intel with both of those teams. We also got the Bruins and the Trojans at the college level. So we had the Big Ten Media Day. So our good friend Will Decker was there. So he's going to be producing a podcast episode about everything they learned from that media day and what to expect with the Bruins. But our good friend Alfred Rowe, he's got you covered when it comes to the Trojans as well. So lots of great content coming from them with all 4 of those teams I mentioned. But guys, to everybody who's already listening to our podcast, who's watching our videos, who's interacting with us on social media, I mean, just anything and everything that you're doing to support the podcast, we can't thank you enough.
And don't forget to check out the LAFB Network Reddit page. A lot of great interaction going on there. And this is our last 24 position ranking. We have a 12 position ranking of tight ends coming out. Are we doing defense?
Of course we're doing defense.
Oh, good God, we're doing defense. That's always tough. That's
defense
rough.
and kickers. So we'll have 12.
Oh, we're doing kickers too. Damn it.
Of course. We got to do it. Got to do it.
All right, number 1. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Graham Gano. Come on!
Yeah. So yeah, I wasn't even going to do it with you.
I was trying to remember the other kicker. Was it Cameron Dicker? I'm trying to remember
Cameron Dicker,
one. Yeah. Damn it. Oh, but we had that coming out. So as always, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And please stay safe, everyone.